Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the Philly Jawns reading and performance this evening. I had my script and now I had all these emails. I found it. Here we go. Okay. No. Don't do that. Okay. Sorry. All right. Dear Maria, so my name is Cherise Pollard, and I'm the director of the Westchester University Poetry Center, and I'm excited to welcome you here to this our final performance of the Craft Festival. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Di Maria, the flautist, has loved playing the flute since the age of 10. She's performed at various venues, from graduations to banquets to weddings, and at events for Freedom Theater, the African American Museum of Philadelphia, and the Philly Film Festival. Di Maria and her flute have enjoyed being in the company of poets, family, and friends who in turn welcome the sound of music with warmth and appreciation. Her motto, "My flute and I will always sing together." And now I'd like to introduce Deborah Powell Wright. She serves as the lead strategist of social justice artist advocacy entity Sister Rights. She's the founder of the multi-genre performance ensemble For Women Collective and a founding member of Philly's first female spoken word ensemble, In the Company of Poets. In addition to being a spoken word artist, having performed for numerous social justice and community-based organizations in Philadelphia's tri-state area, Deborah is a published essayist whose work can be found in Check the Rhyme, an anthology of female poets and MCs, Imagining the Black Female Body, Reconciling Image and Print and Visual Culture, Stand Our Ground, poems for Trayvon Martin and Marissa Alexander, The Purian, Albany State University's literary journal, her first self-published 2012 anthology For Women, in tribute to Nina Simone, a collection of short stories and poems written by women of color from around the world. Deborah is the recipient of multiple artist grants from the Leeway Foundation, the Rauschenberg Foundation, and the Pollination Project, as well as she has co-scripted numerous projects performed by her artistic colleagues. Deborah is proud that her artistic journey began as a result of her participation in the Temple University Pan-African Studies Community Education Program, New Black Voices Poetry Writing Workshop, resulting in her 1997 second place win in the Audre Lorde Sonia Sanchez Poetry Writing Competition and publication in BMA, the Sonia Sanchez Literary Journal. Deborah's latest project is Philly Jawns for Black Women Revisited, a poetry anthology featuring 40, 20 plus 20 Black and Brown women in tribute to Nina Simone, now available.
Thank you, Dr. Pollard. Cherise. Okay, so, I am sometimes animated, so I'm just going to be myself, okay?
Right.
Thank you for joining us. Apologies for our delay. We had some technical difficulties, but, and if you're looking at us on the screen, you will see all these beautiful Black women, and we're going to do what we do is that we're going to perform and we're going to persist and we're going to just do our thing. I'm going to introduce Dr. Regina Jennings very informally, and by telling you that she was my first poetry teacher. And we're talking about back to 1997. And she's going on to do 100 million things. Of course, she's a published author, a published poet. She's a former Black Panther. Don't tell nobody, right? And she is the person who, she's our go-to person. She's a graduate of Temple University, I think it's called African American Studies Department. You'll correct me if that's not exactly correct. But anyway, you're going to learn who she is just by her interaction with these other sisters here. So please welcome Dr. Regina Jennings.
Oh, thank you so much, Deb. And it's just wonderful to be here. Um, I always love what Deborah Wright is doing with the creative cultural people here in Philadelphia and other cities. It's just marvelous in the way that she has just kept us all together, and even having the flautist, Dee Marie. I mean, this is just a wonderful moment for me. I can't wait to interview some of you. I know from way back. Okay, and I see Anxiety shaking her head. She knows where I'm coming from. So it's just wonderful to be here. And this session is called Race, Rage, and Reckoning. And I thought about that, and I wanted to just share with you all that I really feel that I am right now. Let me try to adjust this a little better. I think of, well, that looks worse, but nevertheless, I think of myself right now as a Panther poet, because one of the things I wanted to do with my art is to make sure that those brave brothers and sisters are never forgotten. So I've written, this is my latest book, Panther Poems, Poetry by a Sister Panther. And I'm shamelessly plugging this because I actually published it myself. It's the first, well, yes, the first time I've self-published, and I've published with publishing houses. And I noticed that the artist doesn't really get any money. I mean, it's the publishing house that gets the bulk of the money. So I decided to publish this myself. And so I'm encouraging you guys to run out and get it. It's I think it's a good read, and write a review for me. I'm trying to be a businesswoman now, and I know that on Amazon, if you get reviews, they will prominently place your work. If you don't get reviews, then your work will just be like bottom feed. But enough about me, because again, it's just marvelous to be here with all of you poets. And our first poet, Octavia McBride Ahibi, she couldn't be with us tonight. And I just wanted to share that she had a family emergency, and it's serious. So I've sent up some prayers for her, and I encourage you all to do the same. And before I bring on our first poet, I just want to mention this about prayer. I've been studying with scientists, doctors, and biologists, because I want to prove the metaphysics of ancestral memory, which comes from Africa, with physics, Western science. So in studying with these kinds of biologists and scientists, I have come to learn prayer most often works. You may think that you might be praying in a vacuum, not at all. You may think that the universe doesn't necessarily hear your prayers, not at all. And I'm saying this because these scientists and doctors that I've studied with literally did studies with different groups of people that were ill. And the group repeatedly that was prayed for, let's say it was group A. Group A always got better than group B, who wasn't prayed for. So when we think of prayer, really give it its due, okay? Because we're on earth and we're not just here for no reason. It may seem like it is, especially in these crazy times, but the invisible world is real. And I think that poets probably tap into it to a point. And on that note, I'd like to bring on our first poet. Her name is Cora Williams. And I'm hoping that she's going to share the poem that she wrote for Billy Jawns, but if she has something else, that's cool too. But I did read the poem that she published in Philly Jawns, and you know, I gotta hope Cora will read that work. But it's up to you, Cora, what you want to do, girl.
Peace and blessings. Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Deborah, for tonight and allowing me to share with you all. The theme for tonight, I was struggling with reading my poem that is published in the book entitled Womb Man. The poem that I've written a while ago, sometime in 2020, seems a little bit more fitting for what tonight's theme is. I would like to share that poem with you because it gives rise to a bunch of struggles that we still are fighting with, and that is the right to actually be able to freely wear our hair the way it naturally grows from our scalps, our divine right to be able to actually present as we are. And I would like to share that piece with you, if I may.
You certainly can.
This piece is entitled My Edges Are Nappy on Purpose. My edges are nappy on purpose. Royal regal roots raised a ruckus of rebellion. Revolution streamed live. My edges are nappy on purpose. And you are perplexed by the people who protest because they want to be the best. So why does it bother you so how my hair grows? And all because you know my edges are nappy on purpose. And you're uneased because my scalp is greased and my roots are thick as trees. So you decided to hang me from that Bayou Billy Bob tree in my last life. But I'm back because you didn't know that my tears were the seeds that grew like weeds as you used the law like Roundup to round up the souls that wound up rebelling, still yelling. My edges are nappy on purpose. My coils are communicators, relators that carved maps in my scalp. The way out to those railroad tracks that help weave my way back to natural. My edges are nappy on purpose, puts fear in the clear that made us stand in the rear. You better cover your crown in public, you hear? My antennae are the alumni to the universe, and they converse. And my roots grow towards the sun because I am the one they call atom. Because my 4C can foresee your hate for thee, but still you want to instill that my crown can't be. But my edges are nappy on purpose. It defies all odds, and it is the crown of the gods that you claim. But you still take aim at the originators, making you haters and the perpetrators for those who protest the pick. Because you developed the ire, and now at nappy edges you won't hire. So we will no longer hide the pride and cast our edges aside to calm your nerves to feel justified. Our edges are nappy on purpose. So deal with it.
Okay, Miss Cora. So how did you feel about those edges when you were growing up?
Feeling those edges, I was constantly fighting with other children who had beautifully coiffed in beautiful nappy heads, and we were instilled to think that that was wrong, that it was somehow not supposed to be. And we grew up calling each other picky-headed, peasy-headed. You got those naps, and why don't you make them straighter? And it was just horrifying to
Yes.
remember us doing that to each other.
Sure.
And as I grew older, because I never really liked to wear perms, so I would always let mine grow out when I got one. And I was always the one who would dye my hair in mostly braided styles.
Right.
And then we was fighting about that and fighting about perms and fighting about getting your hair straightened. And then it became the fight against the weave, when all of that is culturally divine to us, no matter
Yes.
how we decide to
Yes.
adorn our hair. We originated that.
That's right.
And we've always adorned our hair by adding other textiles to our hair and
That's
adding
right.
mud to lock our hairs and braiding in rubber and other things from animal hairs and making the first wigs. That's us.
Mhm.
And until we embrace all of that,
Mhm.
we're not going to get any further. And then to have others say that we can't even wear our hair the natural way it grows out of our head, to fight
Right.
with that as well,
Right.
is very difficult. And it still, we even have to have a law passed that we can not be discriminated against because our
That's right.
hair is
That's
different
right.
than other people in different cultures and ethnicities. And I've had a lot of hair poems
Good.
throughout my writing and poetry career, but this one I just recently wrote in this decade because it's just like, this is still going on. And I wanted to present this to just show the infuriation and the rage.
Good.
Like, my hair is
Good.
nappy on purpose.
That's right.
And there is no way around it, and you just gonna have to deal with it.
I'm so glad that you did this poem. It's even close to my heart. Why? Because I grew up during the 1950s and 60s. And during the 60s, we thought we had solved the hair problem. That's when I first saw natural. That's when Cecily Tyson came on TV with her little afro, and we went nuts. And then, just like you said, this is now the 21st century, and they have to pass a law about our hair. That tells you about this country, and that tells you even your poem. It spoke to the race, the rage, and the reckoning, because that's what your poem is. It's a reckoning, okay, for the refusal, the pushback that we have gotten since we were captured and brought to this country in chains. So I want to thank you, Cora Williams, for that wonderful poem.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
very good. Now, our next poet is Rhonda Rise. How you doing, Rhonda?
I'm doing wonderful.
Oh, it's so good to see you. You know, I
good
have to
to see.
call you the girl who never has time. Now, nobody's gonna understand that.
Right,
I did
right.
tell that story before. I'm not gonna tell it again, but you'll always be that girl who never has time for that third party person that we won't mention.
We won't mention, yes.
Right, right. So, okay. So what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I wanted to share my poem from the book, just in thinking about the theme for this evening, which is My Skin is Black, Race, Rage, and Reckoning. I was thinking about the idea of freedom, and how we still struggle with that today. And that always really boggles my mind that here we are 400 or 500 years later or so. And as a people, we are still struggling with this thing that is a God-given right. So I want to share my poem. And yes, here we go.
Okay.
And it's called Free to Be. I'm talking about this freedom. I'm talking about this freedom. This freedom be inside of me. This freedom that I speak. And my ancestors say, before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. This goes out to my ancestors. This goes out to my ancestors, especially Nina, the high priestess of soul, who was unapologetically Black and unapologetically free.
Okay.
Free. I want to be free. Free to express the totality of me in all its grandeur, in all its beauty and complexity, without limiting myself to what they oppress upon me. Free. Free from their fallacious judgments and lies. Free to love these thick lips and thick thighs. Free to be Black and proud without wearing no disguise. Free to love every little part of me, from my rich brown skin, African nose, wide toes, and I love to love the darkness of my elbows. Free to just be me naturally, free flowing. I'm a sage on fire and my spirit is ever glowing, knowledge always going, thoughts always going round and round like 360. I wear my crown, carefree and kinky without no stress. Don't have to worry about getting it pressed. Free, challenging their standards, seeing myself through my own eyes, these eyes that dive deep into generations of pain and injustice against me, yet still I reign and I've thrived through his story. False narratives that try to rob me of my dignity, but here I stand in all of my glory, like the ones who came before me, telling our story. Free, survived and intact. Free, bold, brilliant, and Black. Free, raising Black fist voices that resist, defy, and shape shift, swirling Black hips to the beat of soul rhythms. Free, getting free like them old time spirituals type. Free,
Yeah.
this freedom be all inside of me. Free. See, I want to seek freedom like my ancestors did, fighting for it like soldiers so our people had a chance to live. Free, free to speak my mind, write stories of my people rhymes, talk my Black talk and operate on color people time, because my freedom been coming a long time, and I just want to take my time and flow with it, bask in the glow of it, even throw a little soul in it, give it some flavor and savor it, naming it, claiming it. Free, being who I want to be, me, who the creator made. Free, constantly evolving in motion, elevating my soul. Free, I want to sail on ocean seas, sliding, gliding, riding high on life. Free, I want to travel to my homelands and soak my feet in sacred sands, have a little talk with the creator about the master plan for me, because freedom is a state of mind, the state I was in when I wrote this rhyme. So I'ma keep on living, living no limit free, knowing who I am means you cannot hinder me, because I'm free. expressing the totality of me in all its grandeur, in all its beauty and complexity. This Black woman magic, uniquely flowing boldly, confidently, expressing my individuality free, spiritually, mind, body, and soul. Unleashing myself from mental enslavement is the ultimate goal.
Yes.
Free.
Oh, girl, stop. I mean, between you and Cora, I might as well go home. I mean, what else is there?
A lot more to come.
I know, but
there's a lot of fire still to come.
Oh my goodness. And okay, when we started off, I really thought you were gonna read your poem, but you sang your poem. And I also know that you're a dancer, okay? You're a singer, you're a poet. I mean, how do you decide which format that you're going to express your creativity through? I mean, is it a process, or does it just naturally come to you? Or do you do what you gave us tonight? It's a poem, you sang part of it, you rap part of it.
I really let spirit speak through. I really let spirit just flow through. And I think that has happened. It's been happening more often in these last maybe 5-6 years. I lost my mom. My mom transitioned to the spirit realm in 2015. And I swear it feels like she has just been very present. She's been very, very present. And I come from a family of creatives. So, and many of those, especially women, are now my aunts, my mom, are in the spirit realm now, and they couldn't just sing, they could sing. So I just know that I really feel their spirit very strongly. Spirit is, it's really, you can't really put it into words, because it is something that is just so, it's a powerful thing.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a powerful thing. And I have been reminded how real it is.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I think we as a people, as Black people, we are just a spirit-filled people, to begin with. And I just express that which comes naturally to me. And so I consult with spirit. I pray about it. I meditate on it and say, like, hey, spirit, what do you like? What's up? Like, what do you think is best for me to share with the people? Like, what will uplift the people? What will bring healing for the people? Because, hey, you see what we lived through in 2020, and what we've been living through the last 300, 400, 500 years or so. And so anytime that we can tap into that spirit and be able to express who we are, and like Cora stated, embrace our natural selves. Anytime we can tap into who we are, and who we are, that's provides a sense of peace and healing in itself. So it's like anytime we can tap into that, it's a beautiful thing. And so that's what I try to do through my work.
Well, you do it beautifully, and I'm glad you mentioned Cora, because I have another question for Cora, and it relates to how you do your art too, Rhonda. Cora, I noticed that you also you are textile artist of some kind. You do stitch work.
Yes, I'm a fiber artist, and I was teaching at PASEP. For over 15 years, I taught crochet basics and beyond in the PASEP program. I have a production company that I call Poetry and Stitches Productions, because the stitches are my words. And I use different fibers and different textiles to convey what I want to say. And most of the time when I'm either feeling depressed or just not feeling my best is when I do my best artistic work. So if I'm not writing, I'm creating things or I'm jotting down ideas to combine things that I see and how can I mesh those things together. Like I also paint. So I'm like, how can I put painting and my crochet and poetry and this? How can I make it be one thing? So I'm always creating. For a while, I stopped writing, and I've lost a lot of poems that I've written over the past 20 years, and I've been very depressed about that. And so I just stopped. And I had a conversation with Deborah not long ago and, told her about some of the things I had gone through, and then I just shut down. And she told me it was time for me to be reborn, and it was time for those poems to be given to the universe and for new ones to come about.
Right.
And that's when she called upon me to be a part of the project. And some of the poems I did manage to save, and Womb Man was one of them. And when I presented it to her, she said, that was beautiful. This is exactly what we need. Would you like to be a part of this? And I said, yes. And so she was like, it's time for you to come back up out of the ashes. It's time for you to rise up and, be back into it again. So my process is I just think of things and I'll jot them down. Sometimes it'll come and I'll work through completion. Other times it's sporadically and I piece them all together.
I see. Okay. Rhonda, that same kind of question I had asked you even earlier, but because I want our audience to really get clarity with the multifaceted way that some of the poets express their creativity. So, Cora mentioned about being depressed and writing and not writing. And does your emotional state actually have something to do with whether it's a dance or dance in a poem or a poem in a song?
Wow. I wouldn't say that my emotional state has to do with how the art comes out or how it's released. I would say that, but I will say that my emotional state does play a part in me creating in general, because it does provide, as I mentioned, just that outlet, that release, that outlet for me to get out those feelings and heal. You heal through this art, through this work. And I don't know, I started out more so as a vocalist, and then being on the scene in Philly in like the late 90s, early 2000s, going to October Gallery, panoramic poetry. That's where I got my start doing poetry. I went in there to sing, and, just being around other poets, or seeing poets, and I'm blown away. And I'm like, I think I can do that. I'm already doing poetry in song form, but, in this other form, I'm like, I think I can do this. And, from there, I grew there. And then in Poetry Pulls Pain class at FESA, that was taught by Pat McLean and Deborah Powell Wright. And so, I was just getting my feet wet at Temple University. That's where I went for undergrad, and, dancing. Carrie Alma Welsh Asante. I danced. I danced.
Her.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Carrie Alma Welsh now, but I danced briefly with Carrie Alma and Company.
Right.
And that was an amazing experience. And I don't know, all these experiences just allowed me to to express myself in these different ways and develop, you know, myself as an artist in different ways. And it's just been a beautiful journey, a beautiful experience. But as far as the emotion, I mean, I just never know what will come or what form it will come in when that emotion hits me. Like, I don't know if it's going to be in the form of a dance or a poem or song, you know, but when it hits, I just move with it. I just move with whatever spirit tells me to, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rhonda Rise.
Thank you.
Again, Cora. I might call on both of you a little later. We'll see. But I got to get to Sydney Brown. How you doing, Sydney?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm glad to meet you, dear.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. So what do you have for us this evening?
So I'll be reading the poem that I published in the book.
Oh, great.
Called
Okay.
Black Girl.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just want to start with saying thank you for having me here, and I'm just loving the energy in the room. I can like feel it in my chest, and it's really nice. Black Girl. Black girl walks into a room. Without even speaking, people already assume the tone of her voice, the place that she lives, the loves that she's lost, but Black girl doesn't give a about it. She lives her life out loud, so proud of her circle of friends and the journey she's on. She grew up not really knowing who she was. Never really saw her complexion on TV, and the only thing she know about Black history is that white people felt guilty because during all the conversations about slaves, they always seemed to look at her and apologize. The only Black girl in the room. It's hard to be yourself when everyone is programmed to put you down. Look around. Who have you judged before you even had a conversation with them?
Wow.
If I don't like you, just know I took the time to evaluate your character before I subtracted myself out of your equation. And no, life is not a math problem. Though I'm always trying to find the answers, it's more like an English class, finding different meanings for metaphors and what symbolizes what. I was in history class and noticed the chalkboard, how white chalk is constantly writing over Black ideas. And if you thought to yourself, that is not a race issue, then you are a part of the problem. Even when you erase the blackboard, whitewashing is still prominent, making my people internalize that they are less than their white counterparts, making us go back to the drawing board, while the white chalk screeches on our melanin like the white masters used to rape our beautiful Black women on the plantation. Black girl feels like she's constantly being told she isn't good enough. And in this race game, her trying 10 times harder just gets her to the starting line, while others have already finished the race. Question: when you are finished the race, do you ever look back? Because that's where she is. Black girl just started her self-love journey. She's been taught self-hate in a PWI since 3rd grade, where her hair was the best petting zoo in the school.
Wow.
And she had to make sure no one saw her as a fool because she felt like she had the weight of 1,000,000 on her shoulders. She carried rocks, those rocks turned into boulders, and she couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't stand the disrespect. Couldn't stand the lack of representation, couldn't stand carrying their guilt too, couldn't stand every word she said being seen as a threat. When she spoke, she could see how people took a step back, afraid that Black girl is gonna clap back, afraid that Black girl is gonna crack, afraid that Black girl is gonna smack somebody in the face. Well, Black girl is tired of being misused. Black girl is not a monster. You should not be afraid. Black girl is not a dinner plate you can eat when you're hungry. Black girl is not a pillow you can cry your tears into and make her feel sorry for your mistakes as well. Black girl is not loud. You just never listened. Black girl is powerful.
Yes.
I am powerful. I am Black girl.
Go ahead, Black girl. Yes. Now, Sydney, I just have to ask you. I mean, was it your goal to be the poet laureate of Philadelphia? I mean, did you like, set out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this. How in the world did that happen for you?
I think it just all happened like by chance, I would say, like during the summer or 2020 was like a rough year for me when I was starting out. And I was really like, my mental health is kind of low. And then I started gaining my confidence and doing self-love activities. And then eventually I had the confidence to start like applying for different things. And I self-published my book in the summer. And then I applied to be Youth Poet Laureate at Philadelphia. And then I got it, and it was just amazing. And being able to be at events in Philly and get to meet so many amazing people has just been awesome.
Now, what's the name of your book? Hold it up again. And tell
Daydreaming.
us the name of your book.
Yeah, so this is my book, Daydreaming. It's basically a collection of poems I've written. I think one's from like 7th grade and then up until 2020. And they kind of touch on just like my life experiences, what I've gone through with past friendships, social justice issues, just thoughts that go through my mind and things like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, I've talked to a lot of young people. Well, I teach. So I've talked to a lot of young people, and some of them have said, slavery's over. It's a better day. I mean, do we really need to keep talking about these things? How would you address that to your peers?
Yeah, I would say we definitely still have to be talking about these things because like the side effects of those events are hurting us today. So if we don't talk about them, then they're just going to be swept under the rug, and we won't be able to know what our history was and where we came from.
Let me ask you just one more question, just because I'm actually curious. Why do you think that some of the problems that we're dealing with now, we had dealt with before? Why do you think some of these same problems are ongoing?
I think just because like education, we're not really being taught these things in schools, and no one's really talking about them because they don't want us to remember our history. They want us to just keep
That's right.
repeating it.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, Sydney. I'm definitely going to get your work. I'm very proud of you. And your poem was just glorious. Thank you. Now, the next poet for review is Misty Soul. Misty, I heard you have a wagon.
Yes.
When Deborah Wright told me you had this wagon, I don't know why it affected me so. But I went to your website. You actually have a wagon. And you do all of these creative things out of your wagon. Okay, well, before I get into the questioning of you, I want you to share whatever poem that you'd like to share with us.
Okay. In fitting with the theme, I chose a piece called Maniac Mammy, and it's just about what we do with that rage that we feel as Black women. A lot of times we turn it on ourselves.
Okay.
Oh, Dambala, come, Dambala. Oh, Dambala, come. The swing outside, the back room with the door open just so. Uncle with the ravaged, bloodshot eyes. Mama Sarah will be back. White children. She must attend to the shrill, cold, joyless children. And the knives need sharpening. There is murder in Mammy's eyes. Their mother, pretending to be a white woman, her voice shrill as a crow, is hysterical in motherhood. The children walk behind Mama Sarah's car. There is murder in Mammy's heart. Mama Sarah's children are black and sullen, kind and needy. Mama Sarah's son needs things. He needs new shoes. He needs a ride to school. She doesn't have the money to buy. She doesn't have the time to drive. The sad light-skinned woman with the white husband wants to sleep in. Mother needs her rest. But Mama Sarah is tired. Mama Sarah is guilty and distant. When in the company of her own blood, the rocking chair, the open door, the back room with the crazy uncle, Mama's other brother with the ravaged, bloodshot eyes at the kitchen table. Mama is not there and the house is empty. Someone has left the door wide open. Someone has left her door wide open. At the light white mother's house, Mama gets a phone call. Mama Sarah gets a phone call. Her own child has been struck by a car. And where's her other child? Someone has left the door wide open, and Mama Sarah does not know. She calls the blonde children to her. She gives them sane speech in an insane world. Condemned sin. There is murder in Mammy's eyes, and the children are frightened. Be good, children, here. Now you be good and bring Sarah those sewing scissors. Here? Yes, those, baby. Pay attention, children. Now this is how you lynch a Negro. Mama Sarah lays her head across their laps, opens her own throat. And you slavers would know what it's like to be a slave to your heart, a slave to your soul. Oh, Dambala, come, Dambala. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss D, you know that's a short story, don't you?
Yeah.
You know that's really a play, don't you? Now I won't tell nobody, but God, the characterization really comes through. And going over your bio, I mean, just like I did with Rhonda, I mean, you sang some of the lyrics, okay? And I know that you also paint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm really just fascinated with you women who could just have multiple forms of art and creativity. I mean, how do you, okay, Mama has murder in her eyes. We can really see that. And you repeated that. I mean, is that the kind of thing that you would paint?
Now, my paintings tend to have a lighter, more positive mood than my story. So, what I won't do in image, I will do in words.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do.
My writing and my poetry tends to deal with like the darker side of oppression. Like this is what we've been praying against. This is what we've been struggling against. Like I show that. And then in my painting, I show um, the ancestors and our empowerment and our bonds and our love for each other.
Goodness. So then you kind of juxtapose these two very different perspectives in your art. Like, do you actually do that deliberately, or like Rhonda was saying, the spirit hit her, she's going to go with what comes? I mean, do you do this purposely, or do you let the metaphysical or the spiritual world influence you as to which way you go?
I do, but I also I think it's something that's like sat on my head since I was a younger person, like trying to untangle what is this that's on our back, right? What is this that I feel, even as a little kid, like when I went, from the comfort of my Black community into the larger white world, like what is this thing? What is this like monster? And so, yeah, I intentionally investigate that because I believe there's an aesthetic of oppression, and then there's an aesthetic of liberation, which is what we practice as people,
Okay.
But they have an aesthetic too, and like for instance, lynching. Those were huge, like theater performances meant to you know, instill a certain kind of feeling in us.
Now, you must tell the audience about this wagon that has so intrigued me. How did it come about, and what are some of the things that you do out of that traveling wagon?
It's a mobile state, and it comes out of, again, my interest in Black life and ancestry. So my grandmother was a farmer, right? And Black history. So it's based on my heritage as a Black farmer and on the work of George Washington Carver,
Yeah,
was a who was an agriculturist, but he was also a scientist and an artist.
right.
So that whole interdisciplinary idea, he had a wagon that he would take around the Black community, and he had an interdisciplinary team of like health folks, food, different things to like teach people and try to elevate the community. So that was my intention for the wagon.
So you actually teach people out of the wagon?
Yeah, teach in different kind of ways. So we've had exhibitions, we've had storytelling events, we've had events where we do coloring pages and plant seeds. So it's not always like a lesson, but in the tradition of, Black art, I feel like most of the time we're teaching something, even if it's not what, Western society think of as teaching. There's a call and response that's intentional with the wagon.
Okay. Thank you so much, Misty Soul.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. I love you all.
Our next poet is Aziza Kebe.
So,
Oh, you. Okay.
so in keeping with the theme, I'm going to do a haiku and then I'm going to do a poem and
Okay.
about the spell and what the spell is. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, Black pride has its price. There is no advance purchase. You pay at the door. When Black consciousness came knocking at my door, it blew in like a rushing wind, wiping away all formerly known behavior patterns, washing away our white sins. We went to a lot of meetings, workshops, and rallies too, passed our paraphernalia geared to the Black point of view. We challenged the establishment, became suspicious of the system, scrutinized everything we read, questioned anything that ended with ism. Dickinson was replaced by Brooks. We gave up Frost for Baraka. We memorized the Red Book. Pan-Africanism became our Magna Carta. We used to whisper Black, but now we shouted loud. We were no longer Negro or colored. We were Black and we were proud. We were taught new manners on how to greet each other, referring to Black men and women as our sisters and our brothers. We'd stop eating pork because swine and red meat was jive. We were introduced to soy, organic vegetables, and brown rice. Concolene and perms were transformed to afros and cornrows. Names like Angela, Huey, and Malcolm became our new heroes. We went from high heels to high tops, from psychedelic scarves to Black tams. We practiced martial arts to defend ourselves against a man. Comrades didn't wear dresses. We mostly wore fatigues, which really came in handy when we went on retreat. We learned survival techniques. We played a few war games. We were making preparation for when the revolution came. When I look back on that era and reflect on that time, it wasn't just a change of consciousness. It was about revolutionizing the mind.
Oh. And you know, Aziza, that's my kind of poem, girl. Yes, yes, yes. Now listen, I noticed that you have this long title, this long name. Tell us about that, because it seems to me that it's important. Naya, well, you first of all, you pronounce it. I'm not even going to pronounce. You pronounce it first, then I can know. Okay, go ahead.
So my name is Nakakoi Aziza Zinzele Kebe. So Nakakoi was given to me by the Queen of the Ga. I was at the African American Museum and she came there and she spotted me and she asked them to bring me over to her. She's the Tanahini of the Ga tribe. And she said to me, "You are my Nakakoi," which means after the queen, because someone had told her that I was a poet, which is like a griot. And the
Yeah.
griot always goes behind the queen to announce her and tell her story. So
Yeah.
she has given me the title of Na Kakoi, which means after the queen. And Aziza is my given name. It's actually Aziza too. I was married into the Kente tribe in Gambia, West Africa, who was a descendant of Kunta Kinte, and I lived in Badibu, which was near Jafar, which is where Kunta Kinte came from. And they gave me the name Aziza too, because my given name is the same as Aziza. It's Sharon, which means joy, and Aziza means basically the same thing.
Okay. Double
So
joy.
so it's Nakakoi Aziza too. And I'll just shorten it to Aziza because that's would be the American or the more common version of it. So it's Nakakoi after the queen, precious, which is Aziza, the same as joy. And then I took the name Zale after Mama Africa, uh, Miriam Makeba. Her given name, her tribal name was Nzele, and it means one who controls her destiny. And so when she made transition, I just wanted to keep her name alive. So
Yes.
I am Nakakoi Aziza Nzele Kebi. Kebi is my last name now, with my Sunike husband, who's from Mali. And I am also of the Sunike tribe. So we're actually like kindred spirits. So my name is precious after the queen, precious one who controls her destiny.
Great.
And I like to think that we live up to our name, and I definitely would like to think that I'm in control of my destiny, along with the guidance of my creator and what he has set forth for me.
Wow. Man, I'm so glad I asked you that question. I had no idea what you were going to say. This was marvelous. Now, I noticed that you've traveled a lot. You've traveled throughout Europe, you've traveled throughout Africa. Start with your European travels first.
Okay, so my sister and I, when we were like 15, that's when the youth hostels and everything was big. I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s. And so we went backpacking all over Europe. We had a Europass, and it was really, really dirt cheap. And we stayed in the hostels. And at that time, it was relatively safe because they had, people that looked out for you and everything. And that was my first opportunity to really travel, to go to different countries. Later, when I was in college, I did a winter term in Paris. I speak French fluently.
Oh,
I've traveled throughout the coast of West Africa, um, China. I mean, I've been all over doing poetry. I was invited to do poetry, and they translated my poetry to Mandarin and presented it to Mao Zedong's daughter. I'm very, very proud of that. I lived in Senegambia where I worked on the border, um, teaching like hygiene to the women that live on the border of Senegambia, which is where how you go into Badibu and where the Kunta Kinte people live. You have to go across this river into there. So I taught um, English as a second language to the French speaking children there, as well as hygiene to the women. So it's been a marvelous journey, and but it begins and ends with art and poetry.
now, okay. You mentioned that you did poetry in China. What kind of poetry did you do for that type of audience?
Well, I wrote a book of haiku. I wrote 52 haikus.
Okay.
I did earlier. So I really did haikus. And then I did really poems about nature and love because, the Chinese people are very much into the elements, earth, wind, fire. And they really identify with them in their person and in their life and the way that they behave and the way that they move. So I thought that it was only befitting. I did a love poem, and I did again, poems about nature and life, and then I did the haikus. And again, they translated my poem into Mandarin and presented it to Mao Zedong's daughter.
Oh, that is
And as I
fabulous.
mentioned, I had to read the Red Book. That was part of my training, as a a Black nationalist. So we were able to talk a little bit about the Red Book too.
Yes, absolutely. I know the Red Book well. Yeah, we
Yes,
had to actually memorize that sucker.
absolutely. Well, we will have to quote each other.
Now, let me ask you this too. How then has your world travels informed your art?
Oh, in many different ways. What I want to say is this, because we're all women here, and what I have learned in everywhere that I have gone about women is that we all want the same thing. the way we translate it might be a little different, but at the end of the day, we want to be validated, we want to be loved, we want to be respected, and we want to be heard. And I noticed that, and we want to be loved, obviously. And that is an underlying theme that I have noticed wherever I've gone, whether I can speak the language or not. There was always a way that as women, we're able to reach each other and communicate. And it's that positive feminine energy that we just share among each other. And that is, if I could take anything with me from the places that I've been and the people that I've met, it would be the value of love and the value of being able to communicate that love without words.
Oh gosh, girl, you done took the words out of my mouth. Okay, that was marvelous. Thank you so much, Aziza. Thank you. Our next presenter is the one and only Karen Smith. And I'm saying the one and only because I recently met Karen last year, of course, through the great Deborah Powell Wright, And so I've been talking about Karen because I don't know many women who drum, And every time I mention Karen to somebody that I know, that, oh yeah, that's Karen. So I'm like, well, oh yeah, you talking about Karen that does the drum. I'm like, well, okay. So just because I didn't know Karen, Philadelphia certainly knows Karen. So Karen, I want you to do your poem first, and then we'll get into, a dialogue. And so what do you have for us tonight?
Thank you very much for that introduction too.
Yes.
I'm gonna actually read from the Philly Jawns.
Oh, great, great, okay.
This piece I wrote was inspired by a very lost soul that I saw on the street last May when I was waiting for for my food that was being prepared, and I just soaked her pain and her journey in, and I took it with me home, and I slept on it, and I felt like I have to write something. And she was very much caught up in her addiction. And though I had worked in that field for a long time, it's very haunting. So this one is called The Unrhythmic Slave. The unrhythmic slave. Everyone sees, yet only the bloodsuckers engage, drowning your queendom with mass destruction, supporting your menace to society, reframing you from the spiritual rhythms. The unrhythmic slave, a society that once stolen you from the motherland, a society that forced you on a ship, stripped you from your future of leadership, brainwashed your hopes and dreams, dousing your family tree with repeated less thans, hopelessness, darkness, even when light appears. The unrhythmic slave. Centuries pass, but not hatred, not the tax on the queen, the changes. The poison still spreads, 20th and 21st century. Slaves ships delivering crystal crack to control the masses, the educated, the intellectual, the political reps, the unassuming, the insecure, the curious, the rejected, the unrhythmic slave. She continues to wander the streets, day or night, the unrhythmic slave, beaten by her past, present, and possible future. Disrespected by neighbors, black sheep of the family, hunted by the bloodsuckers, can't hear the drum, can't feel her rich legacy, focus only on self-destruction, focus only on the next hit, till the invisible noose snaps her neck.
Ooh. Ooh. And this poem comes out of a scene that you saw a sister on the street?
Yes, last
Okay.
May, yeah. That was like Memorial Day. Yeah, out in West Philly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Karen, I know that you're also a playwright,
Yes.
a producer, just a very highly innovative woman. I mean, how then do you create your art for the particular categories that you are, or does it just come to you?
Categories, I don't know what to say categories. I used to write a lot of family pieces because I come from a big family. So it was plenty and still to write about when it comes to family and what exists there. But lately I've been really moved by a lot of the things that have been going on, politically, environmentally, spiritually, a lot of social justice piece
Yeah.
come into my journey. I wrote a play that I was given a grant by that Deborah helped. Deborah wrote it for Leeway. She supported me on that, and it's called Awoke the Musical. That was supposed to come out last year, but it's coming out this year, and it's about the pipeline from the public school system to the prison system.
Now, is that the play, because I read your bio, is that the play where you have circus antics in it?
Yes.
Could you
Because
explain that?
It takes place.
I was like, wait, mass incarceration and circus antics? I knew what I was going to ask you. Explain that for us.
Because it takes place in a courtroom, yet the courtroom looks like a circus. And it's supposed to give you the effect of a circus, yet it's a courtroom and it's dealing with these people's lives. But it's there's a lot of jokes and buffoonery and just there is no defendant lawyer. There's just a prosecutor and nobody's taking notes, and the judge is just only focused on retirement and not even caring about the next case or whatever. So it's really just kind of like through poetry and true stories and multimedia footage, telling the different things that have happened with this corrupt system, that we have, and the money that's, is constantly made off of our lives once again.
Yes. Yes. And, to add to that, one of the problems that I'm working on with other people, of course, we have elders in prison who are dying. It's mostly brothers now, because a couple of sisters, they've already died behind bars. And I want everybody to understand this. These are Black people that stood up in the 60s and 70s, became incarcerated, and they're still incarcerated. So there are campaigns to free them all. I mean, if you're 82 years old, how much damage are you going to do out here in society? See, that's just cruelty.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear a politician here in America talk about, yes, human rights abuses in other countries, and we have human rights abuses right here.
Right.
So your interest in mass incarceration is, I applaud you on that. That's marvelous. Now I have to ask you this. How in the world, what drove you towards percussion?
Because I was told I couldn't do it. That was the bottom line. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and there was not really a whole lot of role models of women playing drums or percussion. So,
right.
My mother said, well, that's a boy's instrument. You can't play that.
Right.
I'll get you a piano. You can take piano lessons. And, I knew that I wanted to play drums. So, I would bang on the piano as soon as she moved away. I would bang on top of different things and make that sound. And eventually she gave up. But by the time I moved out, I got my first drum. And it was kind of on from then. But I got no support for it.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I had to really, everything is by ear and how I feel,
Oh, okay.
I feel like I get a lot from my ancestors too.
Absolutely. Yeah, because drums talk. I know you know that.
They talk, yeah, exactly.
Now, how do the drums inform your poetry?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
How does your drumming inform your poetry, or does it?
I think it's all, entwined in there. I feel even from most of the people here, I played for them. So I feel that the rhythms and poetry are all the same, You speak with the drum or you speak through your words, they kind of work together so well.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you so much.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, same here.
All right, dear. Okay. Our next poet is Aaliyah Vance. Am I saying your name correctly? Is it Aaliyah?
Yes, it's Aliyah. Yes, you are.
Okay, very good, very good. Now I noticed that you're in the strange fruit section of Philly Jawns. I don't know if you want to read that particular poem or you have something else.
So I actually have something else that I'm going to read tonight.
Okay.
Yes, it's a piece I recently finished, and it's entitled Freedom. I feel like it's, it goes along with the theme and pretty much some of the things that were shared here this evening. So here we go. Freedom starts in your mind, for as a man or woman thinketh, so is he. Your individual experience determines your heaven or hell. Do you choose to be confined or opt to excel? From the travels of time over ocean's journeys, we have received generational traumas of auction blocks and being up for sale. So there just may be a bit of residue from subconscious tendencies to too often sell ourselves short. Considering another's interpretation of our value over our own, because too often we assimilate and clone ourselves into the perception of the masses. So until we decide to do and be what's required in accordance to our destiny and exemplify everything that you choose to be contrary to popular opinion, misconceptions of fictitious stories branded in his story, shrouded with inconsistencies and distorted facts. But we are so much bigger than that. And since actions speak louder than words, I implore you to reclaim your freedom. For it is not up to the laws of this land to dictate who you are or will become. The power is within your hands for every child, woman, and man to exercise your inalienable right to freedom. They claim this is a democracy, but it often feels like a dictatorship to me, on the verge of tyranny. With trials on display for all to see, you instigate hypervigilance, then refuse to offer recompense while detonating the trigger. Don't allow the powers that be to manipulate your strings like a figurine as they present the life events of slain innocents across TV screens as if it was prime time entertainment.
That's right.
With no respect given, while a man cries out during his last moments of life as they spill out on the street. Perhaps freedom can ring in honor of his memory, of who he was to those he loved and who he tried to be, not the character assassination being spewed to offer justification.
Yes.
The choice is yours.
Yes. Thank you for that, Aaliyah. Thank you. I'm really interested in the fact in your bio, it mentions that you're a mother. And even in this poem, you talk about how George Floyd, he cried out his last words.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, oh my Lord. I wasn't going to ask you this right, or I was going to ask you this question last, but okay, but listening to that line in the poem and noticing in your bio, you put motherhood. I mean, how do you see Black motherhood?
For one, I would say under attack, but motherhood, Black motherhood is all encompassing. I come from the school of it takes a village, and I still believe so.
Me too.
Anyone who I consider a friend, I love their children like I love my own, and vice versa. I will still to this day approach a young person if they need to be spoken to. Sometimes I'll ask a question, being a
advocate for social justice, being a social worker, being a mother, you know, that's all encompassing. Like I guess I've been mothering since I was a young child because I had to help my mother raise my siblings.
Yeah.
I have 4 brothers, and yes, I have a son, a 25-year-old, 6'4", 200 some pounds Black man.
Yeah.
Okay, who is a gentle giant. And for me to, you know, being a Black mother, if you have a son, you cry for every mother that's lost her son.
I know. Yes,
Okay?
yes.
Being a Black mother, every time I see that someone within the age range of one of my children or one of my nieces or nephews or brothers or cousins has been slain in the street, I'm sending out text messages and checking on everybody to make sure they're okay. That's what being a Black mother is. That, you know, in this big, small city, or, you know, like, we realize the world is so much smaller than we realize, or than we consider rather, when you see that somebody's been affected, when you have violence on a TV screen and they're increasing the number of murders that took place, and it happens to be somebody that knew somebody that you know. How often? The sad part is it's not a rarity. So being Black mothers means that, being a Black mother rather, Black motherhood to me means I don't sleep well at night. Not as well as I would like to be.
I understand.
Yeah, you know, and I definitely have to pray.
Yep.
And my children, I have a daughter who's 24, be 25, and like I said, my son is 25, will be 26 this year, God willing. And if I text them and I don't hear back, it's a problem.
I understand.
Yes.
Been there with you, girl. I truly understand. Now I noticed too that you're an actress. That's not in your bio.
No, I'm an aspiring playwright.
Oh, wait a minute.
No.
It actually does say that, but that's okay. So you're an aspiring playwright.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So what does that mean? Have you written a play, or you want to write a play, or?
Well, I'm actually in the process of it, thanks to the one and only Karen Smith. I have a
see this with Karen. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
All right, there it is. Go ahead, Aaliyah. Go ahead.
But I have a story. It was a short story I wrote some time ago, a children's story, and I still have different variations that I want to, you know, present it in. But 2 summers ago, Karen had a play, and I took my great nephews, and it was a children's play, and it was in the middle of watching this, you know, and being drawn in and seeing how much they were enjoying it. Like, my story came to mind, right? And I'm like, whoa, this could be a play. And then I spoke to, you know, Magic Fingers, and the thing is, if anybody doesn't know Karen, that don't tell her you plan on doing something, because she's like, she's gonna hold you to it, and then she's gonna put you on blast in the outside. Yeah.
Good. That's great.
So that happened. Yeah.
Well,
but
keep going.
Oh no, I was just saying that is something that I've always wanted to do. Being an author and a poet, I do have some published collections, but I also, you know, I like writing short stories, and there's different genres that I want to pursue as well.
Well, it was wonderful to meet you. It was glorious to hear your work. The world needs you, girl.
Thank you.
Get it out there. The world. We'll get with Misty Soul and squeeze inside of her wagon and just take it all over Philadelphia. I don't know why I want to get in that wagon, but I do. But in any event, nice, Aaliyah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Ashe.
All right, Ashe. Well, B. Michelle Horton. And you're a minister?
Yes, I am.
I'm so blown away with that. I'm blown away with that.
I'm blown away too.
Okay, it blows your mind too, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Trust me.
Okay. Well, okay, before we start a little conversation, you know, I want you to do whatever poem that you would like to share with us.
Well, about an hour and a half ago, I changed from doing the one that is in the book after listening to everyone's presentation and spirit. I wrote something and I've been writing it out since then. So you're hearing it for the first time as I am saying it.
Okay.
Sometimes you feel like a motherless child. Sometimes you feel like a motherless child. Sometimes you feel like a motherless child. Mama, from being on her knee when I was just a baby, to having a knee on my neck that day that I didn't know was my last day. People trying to make my life something it wasn't so they can get their justice on the neck of the unjust justice placed on me for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, no 9 minutes and 29 minutes, no 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. All of it was too long. Yep. With hands in pocket and looking aloof, not really looking at the camera like he just didn't give a damn about anything other than his whiteness, his rightness, his privilegedness that was and is and shall always be just wrong. From being on mama's knee when I was just a baby, being loved on by her, to having that knee on my neck that day that I didn't know was my last day. And I remembered her knowing she was seeing me. And with my last breath, I called her, labored from the labor of my skin. She heard my first cry. She heard my last cry. She listened for my first breath. She reached for me at my last breath and we met. Then, now, and joining together with the ancestors who watch over us, remembering Cain and my blood and my body and my breath cries out from the auspice, Mama. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Oh, goodness. Oh, wow. You know, I read your poem that's in Philly Jawns, and even with the motherless child refrain in the poem that you just shared with us, in the poem that you wrote in Philly Jawns, you know, you're asking, ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? Right? So you seem to have this kind of historical, because of course it reminded me of Sojourner Truth, you know? And so I'm listening to you, and your projection of strong Black women is very evident. Now, my question for you has to do with, all right, you are a minister, correct?
I am.
All right, now, so how do you go from loving God to creating poetry? Not that they're mutually exclusive. I just want your take on that for us.
I don't see any separation. I believe that God has given me gifts and to be shared in every forum that I can share them. So, you know, to me, you know, church is this moment, and church is in a building, and church is in the park when I'm walking and I hear Celie speaking to me today. And, you know, so there's no break. And, you know, I wanted to say something, I'm trying not to bust out crying, because
Yeah.
I feel like, I think Rhonda said it, like you hear spirit speak to you and change a poem and make you write something in the middle of something else that you're supposed to do. And then you let that be, and you let that travel and rise and fall and land where it is. And my hope is that people always see spirit and hear spirit. That's I believe what I was born to do. And
Yes.
The reason why I'm probably feeling heaviness and awareness is because on Wednesday, my mom would have been 95, and it's the first year of her transition. And a week, and on the 14th is the day that she passed away. So I feel like I am hearing mother's stories now, stories that I did not even hear when she was alive, but giving them to me in these moments.
Right.
And I'm connecting what's happening with all the things in the world, with the pain, and that birthing pain. It's pain and joy at the same exact time.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's all.
Well, I'm kind of getting goosebumps here because I was feeling this strong, like I started off with you, this strong woman force, and all of us here are women, okay? But from reading your poem that's in Philly Jawns, and then listening to the poem that you shared with us, a woman was coming into my mind, into my spirit right now, just from your word. So God is good.
And I believe that the Holy Divine is both mother and father.
Absolutely.
Both feminine and not.
Yes.
So yes, let us feel her as she offers herself to us.
Yes, yes, yes. Have you noticed the difference between, say, an audience like this, where you're sharing your poetry, or when you're actually before a congregation in any particular church? Is there a difference with the audiences for you?
It depends. I'll be honest with you that I didn't get my call to ministry until I was in my 40s. And at that time, I was beginning to come to an understanding of what it meant to be a woman in the fullness of sense. And I'm still finding that out at this age. I think it's very interesting that you get in your 60s and you start start tapping into some things. It's really wonderful. But it depends. And I'm getting to the place where I would, my former pastor used to say, know your audience. But if God gives you a gift, then you speak that and then let it land where it lands. Sometimes people are going to walk away angry. Some people are going to walk away frustrated. And there's going to be somebody there, some little girl or some teenager that walks up to you and say, man, I never thought about it like that. And walk away being empowered. So I'm good. Let it land where it lands.
And we're all good because we're blessed with your presence. Now, I just have to ask you this. I'm sorry, but you must give us a prayer. Now, it's not often that I get a poet who's a minister. Now, I really, in fact, you might be my first. So, I just want you to, share whatever little gift you want to leave us with.
So, Holy Divine, you are spectacular and wonderful and awesome and mighty. And you have created us in your image.
Yes.
You've made us Black and you've made us beautiful. You've made us strong and you've made us wise. And we agree with you that we are all that you have created us to be. And so, God, thank you for allowing us to use our breath, our voice, our fingers, our toes, our dance, our artistry, to place in this world a legacy that will ride on like you have written on. Thank you. Thank you for Deborah. Thank you for Pat. Thank you for these voices. And I pray that it lands exactly where you want it to land.
Yes.
And I say, Amen and Ashe.
Amen. Amen. Ashe. Thank you
Bless you.
so much, B. Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, she's the last, but she is so much more than the least. Anxiety, Kita, anxiety, 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 anxiety. I was thrilled when Deborah said that you were going to be a part of this section. I said, anxiety? Like little anxiety? Because you know how far we go back, you know? Oh my Lord, it's so good to see you.
It's great to see you, sis.
Oh my goodness.
We could talk about some things, right?
Yeah. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy.
We'd have to date ourselves to do it, but that's cool.
That's what can I say? You know,
it's all a blessing, right?
Yeah. You know, it's so funny, anxiety. When I was in my 40s, right? I was on this radio show with a young sister around in her 20s, and she called me an elder. I was like, now I didn't say anything on the show, you know. I was like, I ain't no elder. And, well, I know I'm an elder now, you know, I'm an elder supreme. But it is marvelous to see you, truly. And we have to get together. I'm gonna talk to you in a minute about your book. And so what poem do you want to share with us?
I'm not going to share a poem that's in the book.
Okay.
In the anthology. But I am going to share something that sort of, the themes got me going. But first, I just want to thank my dear, dear, dear sister, Cherise Pollard. We go way back, way back. I've had some of the best laughs in the world with Dr. Cherise Pollard.
Oh.
Deborah Powell Wright. Well, it turns out we go way back as well. Actually in the same high school. Didn't know each other. So it's funny how life comes around, right?
Yes.
But I am so impressed with the way Deborah works her game. I'm learning from her all the time.
Me too. Yes.
She's just like entrepreneur. I love it. So I wanted to thank those two women as well as the other sisters, and also to Cindy, who has been facilitating a lot of things for this reading. So I got to thinking, I'm working on a manuscript right now, and there's a poem in it that I'm going to read that has to do with rage, race, reckoning, and empathy.
Mm.
And so just briefly, there's some references in here, looking through, because there's some younger folk in the room. I reference the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys was a series of mystery novels for children that probably dates back to the 50s. I mentioned Nazis, which I think you know what that is.
Yeah.
I mentioned Glinda the Good Witch, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows who that is.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, in case you managed to miss that. I mentioned Sidney Poitier, which I hope you know. And I mentioned the Mau Mau, which was a revolutionary group in Kenya in the 50s.
Yes.
And I mentioned Alabama, but when you hear the title of the poem, that will make itself clear. So this poem is called Letter to Melvin Butler, 1965. So I want you to picture a 4th grade classroom in 1965 with very few Black children in it.
Yeah.
You're close, sorry, let me start over. Your close trimmed kinky hair, church shoes, well-ironed shirt, and V-neck sweater only showed you were a boy, one who would make a mess of those clothes, playing football at recess, a transfer, or a boy from across the district, key swinging from a neck string. A boy in a world made mostly for white girls and certain rakish types of hardy boy extraction, or any child from the East Mount Airy rich. You and I, Melvin, fit with none of those. And you, a Black boy, unconvicted, unprepared for Miss Rogers of the Nazi pompadour, Black organza and fangs. No day in room 209 began until you had been properly clubbed, scream cleaned, and shoved toward a corner. Forget trouble with fractions. You left your pencil or it lost its point, Hitler forbid. Acetylene torches would set the room alight, gasoline tongue shooting out. Did you lean across the aisle, Melvin? I'm sure you did, to infiltrate my terror, test my bacon grease solidarity with a side grin. Didn't I slide my half collaborator eyes your way to beg you, quiet, quiet? Didn't I drop and roll you the pencil under my foot? Am I right that Rogers hooked her ghost bones to your collar? You wouldn't let her yank you off your feet and took the chance of snapping it back down. Did I see my brother's ache in your bright expression? She squashed your jokey calm. She hurt me too. How many times on our behalf did I pinch the clouds, pleading for Glinda the Good Witch to set that bubble of hers down on the schoolyard and wave us in? Although I prayed, no note from on high drifted through the window to plummet onto the Nazi's desk. Butler simply turned his head. He's innocent. Release him, or else. Sincerely, God. We could have dug a Mau Mau pit of spears, like they did in that Sidney Poitier movie. We could have lured her to the forest and pushed. We could have understood each other better. Could we have dug a tunnel through our minds? Those kinds of friendships didn't happen then. Could we have stopped your shoulder slump? Fists in the air didn't happen then. I was no good at reading fourth grade boys. You were no good at sitting still. Our families sat back, Melvin, nervously, glad, thought they had opened the right door, pushed us clear of nooses, past the soul-stripped harms they understood, thought they had saved us, and they did, but real blades found us in that greener grass. Melvin, did we try to hazard all that buttoned up white storm? Were we something like those Alabama kids on TV, or not at all? Weren't we like them, straining to clasp hands? Fur, fury, and even water trained to murder us? That's it.
I got you. So Nzadi, is that
I've never read that poem before out loud.
okay?
I mean, to a group. You know?
Yeah. So was that the mother in you that made you choose Melvin Butler, a little boy?
Probably. I mean, probably. I mean, well, you know, in part. I mean, there's a, you know, I'm unfortunately I have a pretty good memory.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, people talk a lot about trauma these days. I always find it so interesting. I'm like, yeah, wow. Oh, we can talk about that now? That's a thing? Because I mean, Melvin Butler, by the way, that's his real name. He was really in class in 4th grade.
Okay.
It's a literal poem.
Mm-hmm.
Levels. So, you know, there's some me consciousness in there because I literally struggled through that whole year. Melvin and I there was a couple of other Black kids in that room, but that woman, I hope she's really burning in hell somewhere because she was
I love Rage.
Horrible to us. So,
yes.
So it's self, it's mother, it's, you know, it's, yeah, there's a lot of mother in it though, because I'm the mother of 2, well, they're men now.
Yeah.
But I'm also a sister of, I mean, my brother was a year older than me. And we kind of integrated that school. And God knows what he was dealing with. So it's, you know, it's just sort of my place in the world. Situates me to write that.
Now you mentioned trauma because it's workshops on trauma and all this happening now. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, do you ascribe to just describing trauma or trauma and some kind of healing or resolution or something?
I'm not sure if I know what you're asking me. Can you say it again?
Sure. There's a lot of workshops now on trauma, especially on female trauma and Black women's trauma. How do you see that these workshops where you talk out trauma, or do you see it as trauma and resolution?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's all part of a cycle. I don't think you're going to resolve it without talking it out. You know, that's part of the reason that people do damage to themselves in various ways. I think it's all good. I think it's positive. But I mean, I'm old, you know, so I'm fascinated by how the world changes such that, you know, we can acknowledge that trauma is a thing that defines our behavior often and shapes our view of the world and colors how we engage with each other and feel capable. I'm just fascinated because I'm somebody, I mean, I was in 4th grade in the middle 60s. So, you know, those of you who know that there wasn't any language for all this shit. You just, you know, you just sucked it in. If you were me, one of these days, I am going to be a Black nationalist, and this is going to handle all that. You know, and I was blessed to come of age at, you know, when the Black Power movement was happening.
Yes.
You have these students who are like, you know, they don't understand why everybody doesn't love them, and they don't understand why I don't mean to make fun, but
no, keep going. But
you know, I'm like, you know, if you don't see that this situation is a setup and that you need to like because somebody thinks that you're not worthy, you're gonna buy that? Really?
Sure.
Come on. So, but that's my 60s childhood talking.
Good.
I sat and watched people that look like my Sunday school teachers get beaten over the head by cops. Like, what is right about that?
That's right.
But we didn't have any way we didn't have all of these venues and channels to talk about, we had church, you know, I went to church a lot, you know, you sang things out, you know, you played in the street, you didn't think about it all the time, but you know, we were marked by these things too. I don't mean to say we weren't.
Right, of course.
So yeah, it's just interesting to me. And I mean, and gratifying, by the way, that people have channels by which to try and resolve. Because don't we want to be healthy?
Yep. Now, I want to ask you about your book, Brief Evidence of Heaven.
Oh gosh, and it's downstairs.
Oh, you should have it so we can see it. Listen,
I know,
that book is, listen, girl, that book is so important. Nobody writes about Fred Douglass's first wife. In fact, if you're going to talk about any wife of Fred Douglass, you know which one people will talk about, you know? So I'm intrigued with your bringing forward Anna Douglass. I mean, how did that happen?
Over a long period of time, but it started a long time ago. I was teaching a research paper course at Westchester University.
Ah!
That was my first college teaching gig.
Oh, nice.
High Street, Westchester, 5th floor. Yep. And back then, they had students took a whole semester class in how to write a research paper, and I was like, and I had 100 students. I had 4 classes, 25 a piece, and they were full. And I'm like, shit, I got to read research papers. I got to make this something that's going to be interesting. So I made all my classes read the Frederick Douglass's narrative, the short. Yeah. And so I had to read it again. And this time around, I noticed this one sentence where he talks about his wife came to join him and they got married in New York. And I was like, yes, Frederick Douglass had a wife? Who ever thought about that? Yeah. I sure didn't. I don't even remember reading that. Right. So that's right. See, that was in the 90s. And I doing other things, you know, raising kids, you know, working, teaching, etc. Anyway, later on, but I kept trying to do little poems about her, and they weren't working out. You know, you read something and you go, oh God, this is no. So but then I realized that I was writing from like third person, like I was talking about her. Okay. And I realized that this woman has been so trampled on and overlooked and dismissed. Yes. Respected. And when I found out that she gave him the money, yes, to get on the damn boat. That's right. And he, you know, we all know that part about him. He had to give all his money to the man that supposedly, you know, that controlled him. Right. I don't use that owner master. Oh, okay. But right. but the person who was holding him captive. Yes. On his money. So, you know, she had never been enslaved. Right? Because everybody wasn't. She had never been enslaved, but she was poor. But she had a job and she saved money like crazy. And she gave him the money to get on the boat. She helped him with the outfit that looked like a sailor. That was all her. And then that's right. And then when I started, my husband's a historian. So when I got onto this, I ran up to his study and I was like, give me all your Frederick Douglass. Boom. He took me downstairs with like 6 different books. And I'm going through all of them, looking for something more about her. And there's almost nothing. That's exactly right. Because I've even looked for stuff on her when I found out with one sentence. It's one sentence. Where she was mentioned. And it's like the same sentence in several books. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to do. I didn't really want to do it. I was trying to be a fiction writer, and I had to go. I had to do it. Good. I had to do it. So now, so to finish my point, I realized that she had to talk for herself.
Okay.
I had to be the conduit. So I started writing in first person and writing persona poems.
Oh.
And that was the pivot to that.
Now,
I started doing first person. Rain was fall. I mean, they were just happening. So I took that as
fantastic. Now
I'm sorry, what?
Wait, you kind of going in and out, Anxiety. Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Say whatever you just said again.
Oh, I just said I took it as an affirmation.
Okay.
That because the poems got plentiful after I changed to first person.
Very good. All right. So your book is on the market. We can get it at bookstores or
no, you can get it through SPD distribution, spdbooks.org.
Okay. Let me write that down. Say it again.
S as in Sam, as in Paul, D as in David, books.org.
Okay.
I try to avoid who as much
I know. I'm with you, sister. I got you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's been marvelous, Anxiety, truly. Just marvelous. Just even seeing you again. This is wonderful. And I wish you continued success. I know it's happening for you. And this whole session has just been a joy. All the public. This is I've learned a lot, and I know there's still a lot more that I want to learn. And I'd like to thank, I really don't know her. I've met her for the first time tonight, Cherise Pollard, the good doctor. And of course, I'd like to thank Deborah Powell, right? How you doing there? I'd like to thank Deborah Powell, right, for pulling this together. It's another Westchester woman I wanted to thank, but it's Cindy. I don't know her last name, but thank you, Cindy. And Deborah, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow. We did it. We did the damn thing. I'm kind of speechless, to tell you the truth. And every time we have a reading, I am just speechless and a little bit overwhelmed. And like afterwards, I always thank each of you, and all of you are always thanking me as well. But all I can say is I couldn't have done this without you, and talking about spirit, and which is how this came to be. This came to be because the voices of the ancestors, as many of you have expressed, and for me, and just bringing it back together, even in terms of healing and empathy, it was initially for myself, for me. I needed it before the pandemic. And I'll just say that because of some things that have happened, in my life, and so the pandemic was just the conduit for me to begin to not only express the opportunities for my healing, which is writing. I wrote the other day that we didn't have the language. I did not understand that writing poetry was my self-care practice. When I first wrote my first poem that was published in a journal at Community College of Philadelphia, I did not know at that time that this thing that we are all doing and that we're all claiming is the thing that it continues to help me process through grief and mourning and healing and trauma and all of these things that we've talked about. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so appreciative, and thank you so much, Cherise. Cherise, I was sending emails out to different entities, and I sent Cherise an email last year, and I believe it was on a Tuesday. I was in January, I sent out some more emails, and I got an email from her and it just said Philly Jawns. And I thought, well, that's interesting because that's not in reply to the subject line that I had in the email. And it turns out that she had remembered the email that I sent in November or December. And she was combing through and she found something. And so she reached out to me and said, hey, you know, I'm the director now of the Poetry Center at Westchester University. And, you know, the information that you sent me about this Philly Jawns thing, tell me more and tell me how I can have you, you know, bring this to us. And so for that, I'm just so grateful, Sharice, for, you know, your inviting us to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, the reason it took so long between the first email in November and January was I was still getting on my feet, and but I saw that email and I said I'm gonna email her, and it took a minute till I figured out everything that was how it was gonna work. But I knew I wanted you all to perform on our last night as our final big hurrah, you know, celebration of the whole thing for the festival. And I want to highlight you all and just make it happen. And oh my goodness, how amazing. I changed venues. You know, I was upstairs in the office and I wanted my mom to hear, so I came down, and I'm down in her room now, and we've been watching it together. And this is just so wonderful that, you know, when I think about what poetry can do, you know, when I think about, you know, politics, and I think about social transformation, and I think about feeding the spirit of a people, and then people listening to spirit and responding to that and giving voice to our ancestors and just making that commitment to the culture and commitment to ourselves and our families and all of it, and our family of writers, and it's just so beautiful. And I feel like I just stepped into a tribe that belongs to me. I'm claiming all y'all.
Right.
And it's so wonderful. Anzadi, it's so wonderful to see you again. You know, we need to get some coffee or some tea and have some laughter, and just my new friend Deborah. Regina, you just brought it, you know, just so amazing. It's so amazing. And let's see, and then B Michelle, that was powerful. Aaliyah, Cora, not I'm not called Aziza, not Sydney, Rhonda, um, Misty, Karen, Dee Marie, Jazz, Dee Maria, Jazz. Everybody's just so awesome, and I'm just so happy and so proud of all y'all. And you know, I hope to see you all soon, and I hope to have you when we're back on campus. I'm booking y'all. So just wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Cindy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. And so to that, we say good night. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.